What is up, guys? So this is going to be my tier list video for all of the main characters of Legends of Tomorrow. Just like with The Flash and Arrow, this video will only include main characters, or actually series regulars, characters and actors who are credited as series regulars. So there are certain characters who feel like they're main characters and they appear a lot, maybe even more than certain other series regulars like Kid Flash or Nora Dark, who didn't really appear that much in their seasons, but they're never credited as series regulars for any reason. I have no idea why. Vandal Savage, Damian Dark, Malcolm Merlin, and John Constantine, just to name a few. I feel like this show has a lot more than the other shows, just main characters and series regulars, or main characters who should be series regulars but don't feel like it. So for the people who are wondering why Zoom wasn't in the video, I did explain it, but I feel like people might have skipped past it. The same reason here is why Vandal Savage, Damian Dark, Malcolm Merlin, and John Constantine, and others are not in this video, because they're not played by series regulars. Anyway, let's start the actual tier list, starting with Martin Stein. Martin Stein was actually the top billed actor on this show, I'm pretty sure, until his departure, which was definitely a very sad death scene, a very sad departure at the end. I really like the dynamic between him and Jefferson Jackson, and Firestorm, when they're using their powers, is probably my favorite superhero on the show. They're just really cool. Their costume is awesome, and their powers, although they usually just use the fire and the flight, that is still pretty cool, and also, obviously, the transmutation is pretty awesome as well, even though they barely used it, or they barely used it. I think Martin Stein this version of him is basically a perfect version of him. He's a great adaptation of the character from the comics, and Victor Garber does a great job in the role. I don't think he deserves to be in the S tier, but I would definitely put him in the A tier, as he kind of felt like, this show kind of felt like he was missing Martin Stein and Jefferson Jackson and the Firestorm duo going into the second half of Season 3, and especially Season 4. Ray Palmer, aka The Atom, honestly I thought was going to be the main character of the show just going into it, because of how pretty awesome he was in Arrow Season 3. I felt like just he had the same presence that Barry Allen had in Season 2, like it felt like they were setting up a spin-off show, and it turns out they were, but in not the way I wanted to. Honestly, looking back, I probably would have just preferred an Atom show over a Legends of Tomorrow show, because Ray Palmer as the character was kind of ruined in the show. I thought he had a great motivation in Season 3 of Arrow, the actor did a great job in the role, and he was just very, very interesting. But Legends of Tomorrow completely ruined him. He lost all sense of character, went from a pretty genius, very charismatic person to just a buffoon, and he was pretty stupid in Season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow, and basically the entire show as well. He had basically nothing interesting about him except for his powers, which at this point in the show he barely uses. So although I don't hate him at all, I just think that they really ruined him, and it's a huge letdown for this show, that the character who I felt like was going to be the main character, and the character who I felt like was going to be the most interesting thing about the show, and the character who I felt like could have held his own TV show, fell by the wayside and now feels like an afterthought. No, not really an afterthought, but he feels like he was ruined as a character, and he's no longer the center of the show, although he never was. I feel like he should have been, because he used to be, in Arrow Season 3, the most interesting character in this show, but I would put him in the C tier, which again is incredibly disappointing. Rip Hunter was definitely a pretty weird character, although I do think the actor did a great job in the role, and his character and his motivation and everything like that, his story in general, is really good. His actual role on the show is really unusual. He goes from being the main character to a completely different person, and basically a plot device for a lot of Season 2, and then American. He goes from being British to American, and then Season 3, he's 5 years older, and he has no connection to the Legends aside from the fact that he used to know them. It's really weird, his role on the show, but I kind of liked it. I think it worked for the show in general, and when he died, the show felt kind of like it was missing something afterwards. So I would say Rip Hunter was a great character, and I would say he also probably deserves to be either in the B or A tier, but for now let's put him in the A tier. I mean, I'm probably not going to move him, so the A tier is good. Sarah Lance, aka White Canary, I feel like I've kind of have mixed opinions about her. Sometimes I really like her and I think she's pretty cool, but other times I think she's a really boring main character. Her story arc and her motivation is not really that interesting. Her powers, which she doesn't have any, is really just her fighting ability, which is honestly pretty boring. If she also had a canary cry and her name was Laurel or Dinah and she was the Black Canary, I feel like I would like her a lot more, because that would be a lot more interesting. Although it would be weird that that character would be disconnected from Arrow, I still still feel like she would be a lot more interesting. That being said, I think Katie Lotz definitely does a great job in the role, and she definitely fits as the leader of this team just as well as Rip Hunter. But I also think that she is a pretty boring main character, if you even want to call her the main character, which this is a team show, so it isn't really the main character, but she's definitely in the front of all the marketing, and she's the captain of the team. So in season 2, 3, 4, she definitely feels like the main character for a lot of it. That being said, she is a pretty boring main character, and although I do like her sometimes, I think she probably just deserves to be in the B tier. So like I said earlier, I really like the dynamic between Martin Stein and Jefferson Jackson, and that is definitely also true on Jefferson's side. One complaint I have about this character is that he barely uses his powers, like I said, for Martin Stein, and that became really evident in the episodes leading up to Crisis on Earth X, where he was obviously going to leave the show because Martin Stein and Victor Garber wanted to leave the show and he was going to. So those episodes, like, they barely used their powers, and it was so evident. But again, when they use their powers, it is awesome. I love their costume, I love their powers in general, and when they're using their powers, they are my favorite superhero on this show. And honestly, just like with Rip Hunter, the show kind of felt like it was missing something after they died and left. Not necessarily in season 3, because season 3 had a very interesting storyline and main villain, but in season 4, I mean, they really could have used a character like Firestorm to make it a little bit more interesting, so I would put Jefferson Jackson in the A tier as well. So here we get to Hawkgirl, basically the worst character of the show and one of the biggest downfalls of season 1. The actress who plays her I don't think is very good in the role at all. These two characters, Hawkman and Hawkgirl, were incredibly miscast in my opinion. Not only do they have no chemistry with each other, they don't feel like the characters, and they're not good actors at all. Hawkgirl was a very annoying character with her constant mentioning of the fact that she was a barista. I feel like she mentioned that like 5 times, so it's not that much, but it was so annoying every single time she did, because the way she said it and the way she used it in sentences, which again, this isn't exactly the biggest thing, but it became pretty annoying when you stockpile everything that is wrong with this character. So I would say that Hawkgirl is definitely a pretty bad character, which sucks, because as a kid watching Justice League Unlimited, Hawkgirl was an awesome character in my opinion, and the fact that they basically botched the character in this show, and they did that for a lot of characters as well in the entire Arrowverse, including this show as well, it's really disappointing. But I do think Hawkgirl deserves to be in the F tier. Similarly to Hawkgirl, Hawkman was basically just a not good version of the character. The actor who played him was horribly miscast, the writing for the character was bad, and his role in this first season was so unusual. Just like a couple of the characters in this entire video, he doesn't really feel like a main character because there are so many episodes that he is just not there, and he dies, I'm pretty sure, in episode 3 of the show, and does he not come back until like episode 8 or something? It's really weird how they use this character, not to mention that he is a very not really annoying, but he's definitely, again, miscast, poorly written, and his storyline with Vandal Savage and Hawkgirl, it's just not good. Although I don't hate him, I would definitely put him in the D tier, and probably at the bottom of the D tier as well. So for now, let's put him in the 3rd slot, which I probably should mention I added these lines because I feel like it would work better for the tier, for the actual aesthetic of it all, but it doesn't really matter. Moving on to Mick Rory, aka Heatwave, who I feel like a lot of people like a lot more than I do. I think that after Captain Cold left the show, which I will mention in a bit, I will talk about him in a bit, Heatwave became a character who I feel like overstayed his welcome, and has continued to overstay his welcome for 3 seasons. I don't think he fits on the show because he still feels like a criminal, and even if he doesn't, he should be a criminal. He should be a villain on The Flash. He shouldn't be a hero and a member of the Legends. Like when they had that team-up shot in an Invasion, you had all these heroes, and then you just had Heatwave, who in the comics is a pyromaniac villain and one of the least redeemable villains in the entire Flash Rogues Gallery. So when you see this character on basically the Justice League, it's so weird and it doesn't fit at all. And that is second for the Legends as well. Not to mention that in season 1, 2, and 3, they already had a fire character in Firestorm, so I really saw no reason for this character to be here other than his dynamic with Captain Cold. So honestly, I feel like Heatwave is a lot more beloved to people than I understand why you like him. He's definitely pretty funny sometimes, but I honestly think he has basically no role on this show, and he just doesn't fit at all. So I would probably put him in the C tier. I know I was being very negative about Heatwave, and that's just because I know a lot of people love him, and I just have to explain why I don't love him, but I don't hate him either, and I think he deserves to be where he is in the C tier. His partner, Captain Cold, I feel like is a much better character. He's definitely very different from the comic book character, and he's a lot more heroic, and honestly, I don't like that, but it also kind of works for the character in this specific universe. He was a pretty good villain on the Flash Season 1, and honestly, I think he should have been a villain going forward into the rest of the show, and again, I don't like the fact that he's heroic, but I think he works really well in the first season. The actor who plays him is pretty good in the role. He had something to the team, unlike Heatwave, because his ice powers are something more other than Heatwave's fire powers, which don't really add anything. Anyway, I know people love Captain Cold, but just like Heatwave, I don't get it really. I don't understand why people love him so much, and I know a lot of people are going to dislike this video just because Captain Cold isn't going to be near the top of the tier, and that's fine. I honestly don't really care. I'm just going to say I really don't understand why Captain Cold is such a beloved character, so honestly, I like him, but I don't think he deserves to be anything higher than the B tier, especially because he was only in one season, and I don't think he really added much. I mean, he added much to that season, but after that, he was really nothing of a character. In fact, I liked him so much more in Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, where he was a villain, but he wasn't really a series regular in that season. That being said, I'm still counting seasons where these characters aren't series regulars, but they were in the past or they were afterwards. Either way, that's irrelevant at this point. I think Captain Cold, I understand why people love him, but I also don't understand why people love him so much. Moving on to a character who I do understand why people love him so much, the only villain in this entire video, which is really weird because each season has a villain and only one of them is a series regular, with Season 2 also having multiple villains, or really the only villain except for Captain Cold and Heatwave, who are kind of more heroes than villains at this point. Reverse Flash, aka Eobard Thawne, who I thought was an awesome villain in Season 2, and probably the best character on the show because of his, well, I'm only counting his Season 2 Legends of Tomorrow role because although he is in the Flash a lot, that is not being counted for this video because this is the Legends of Tomorrow video, not a Flash video. I still think just in Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, he deserves to be at the top of this tier. In the S tier, he's a great villain. I think Matt Letcher, although he's maybe not as good as an actor as Tom Cavanaugh, I like him more in the role because he is the real Eobard Thawne, and it feels a little bit weird whenever we see Tom Cavanaugh outside of Season 1 as Eobard Thawne, so I think this works really, really well with Matt Letcher in the role. I think he's a great actor, his storyline is great, and I really like everything about him, and although he's definitely not as good as Reverse Flash is in maybe like Season 1 of The Flash, and maybe also Season 5 of The Flash, he wouldn't really be in the S tier of those tier lists, or that tier list, but here, Legends of Tomorrow, which I think has a worse cast than The Flash, I think he deserves to be right at the top of this tier list. Vixen, aka Amaya Jiwe, I feel like they really shouldn't have done this character. Honestly, I would have preferred that they just recast her. Like, if they had this actress playing Mari McCabe from the present day, I would have liked that a lot more. I think that would have worked a lot more. And the reason that they didn't use Mari McCabe, even though they wanted to, is because the actress wasn't available. But honestly, they've done recastings in the past for very high profile, like movies like the MCU. They had big name characters recast and nobody really cared. So now I think they should have recast Mari McCabe and used Mari McCabe instead. I think that would have worked a lot better for this show. That being said, Amaya is definitely an interesting character, and I like her connection to the JSA, which kind of feels like it doesn't really matter after the first couple episodes of Season 2, or especially in Season 3, but I do really like her in Season 3, and I really like her connection to that entire storyline, and I think she had a pretty good ending, and I think that if she stayed past Season 3, it would have been pretty annoying. It would have probably felt like she overstayed her welcome, but I do think she's a pretty good character who probably deserves to be maybe near the bottom of the B tier, so I'll put her right here in the B tier, which is weird because I don't really like her more than the Atom, but I do think the Atom is very disappointing for this show, but it's really weird that I'm putting the Atom under Vixen. I'm going to stand by that. Yeah, I think the Atom's a worse character than Vixen overall. Anyway, moving on to Citizen Steel, or Steel, I guess. I really don't like that they're calling him Steel in the show because there's another character named Steel, and this character is named Citizen Steel. Anyway, I think that the actor who plays him does a great job in the role. I really like his storyline in Season 2, and although he never uses his powers, when he does, it's pretty awesome, and I really like his costume. That being said, the fact that he never uses his powers, and the fact that he was pretty stupid in Season 4, like his whole storyline, I really didn't like that, and the fact that he died and then came back in the easiest way possible in Season 4 as well. There's a lot of things I don't like about this character, but I still think he probably deserves to be in the B tier. So I liked Zari a lot more than I thought I would. I really like her powers, although again, she never uses it. I think in Season 4, she used it one time, but I really liked her connection to the main storyline in Season 3. I kind of liked her relationship with Nate in Season 4, and I like her character in general, and I'm honestly pretty interested to see how her storyline unfolds in Season 5, especially if they incorporate her comic book roots, or I guess TV show roots, because she originated in a TV show, but her comic book roots of being married to Black Adam and the fact that she is connected to the Shazam Rogues Gallery. I really want to see things like that, so I would put her in maybe the C tier, because while I do like her, I don't think she really deserves to be in the B tier. Honestly, I'm saving the last slot in the B tier for this next character. Honestly, you know what? I'm going to switch Vixen and Zari. Last second, I think Zari is a much better character. The actress who plays her is a way better character than Vixen, and there's honestly no room left for Vixen in the B tier, and thinking about it now, I don't think she really deserves to be in the B tier. A character who does is Kid Flash, aka Wally West, who despite not really appearing much on the show at all, left a pretty great impact. He was a lot better and more interesting and more enjoyable in this show than on The Flash, because he was never overshadowed by any other speedsters. Now, while I did like him on The Flash, I think he was a lot better and he fit a lot better on this show. Those episodes where he appeared were great, and when I heard that he was leaving not only the show but the Arrowverse, I was pretty annoyed and was very disappointed, especially since I think Season 4 really could have used characters like Kid Flash, Rip Hunter, and Firestorm, but Kid Flash is definitely up there because he's the only character out of those three who was actually viable to return in the next season. So anyway, I think Kid Flash, although he definitely deserves to be in the B tier, I don't think any higher because of the limited amount of episodes he was in. So I'll say it right now, the next 4 characters in this show I think are just bad. These characters are terrible additions to the show. I mean, just look at them. They're not DC characters at all. They're not characters who I feel like should be in a superhero TV show, and they're not characters who are interesting at all. Although I do like some of them more than others, I think these 4 characters are all going to be probably D tier or maybe even F tier, starting with Ava Sharp, who I don't dislike her at all. I think the actress is fine in the role, and her relationship with Sarah is fine. It's just that she takes up a series regular role in a superhero team-up show that usually should include DC characters, or at least superheroes, and I really don't like that they included a character like Ava Sharp. And also in Season 3, I really didn't like her. In Season 4, although she didn't really do much, I also felt like she shouldn't have been there, and she didn't really add anything to the season at all. And although some characters are a lot worse than her, I think she deserves to be maybe at the top of the D tier, along with this next character, Nora Dark. Now, I do really like Nora Dark. I do think that she was great in Season 3. I really liked her storyline with Damien Dark and Mullis, but she should not have returned in Season 4. Her relationship with Ray Palmer is really contrived, and they really only did it because the 2 actors are married, which is fine and all, but Ray Palmer has a love interest in the comics, and I don't really understand why they did a character like Nora Dark here, other than the fact that they're married in real life. I don't think she should have stayed around after Season 3. She added basically nothing to Season 4, and she was barely in the season at all. Season 4 in general is a bad season, and I think Nora Dark suffered as a character because of it, and I would put her in the D tier, especially as a series regular. She is just not good. I absolutely hate the idea of Charlie existing. The only reason she exists is because the actress who played Mai Jiwei, who I felt like got a pretty good farewell for the show, and there was absolutely no reason for her to returned in Season 4 as a completely new, way less interesting character. I was going to say way more boring character, but she's a way less interesting character. Her powers are really boring. It's just shape-shifting. Her origin story is pretty stupid, and the fact that she's a magical creature does not help in the slightest. I don't like this character at all. I think she adds basically and practically nothing to the show, and the fact that she is the same actress who plays Vixen, and the fact that she's still around only because she was on the show and they couldn't really keep the character around really bugs me, so I would put her in the D tier as well. But now we get to maybe the worst character on the show ever, Mona, which is saying a lot because I really disliked Hawkgirl, but I think that Mona might be not only the worst character in Legends of Tomorrow, but maybe the worst character in the Arrowverse ever. The actress who plays her is god awful. The writing for the character is horrendous, and her powers look stupid, and her connection to the magical creatures, again, I hate those people, and the fact that she is one of them, or she got her powers from one, I hate that. The fact that she's not a DC character, I hate that. And when I heard there's like they said that a new Asian woman is going to join the team, I thought it could be cool if they had a Dr. Light or some other Asian female character, but they decided to go with an original character who has werewolf powers, and those werewolf powers looked ridiculous, and they cast an actress who doesn't know what she's doing. I absolutely hated this character, and she ruined what could have been an okay season and made it a pretty bad season, so I would put her in the F tier, maybe under Hawkgirl as well. So I rearranged it a little bit just to more accurately represent what I think is the actual list. In the F tier we have Mona, who is by far the worst character on the show, or maybe not by far because Hawkgirl is also in the F tier. In D tier we have Charlie, Hawkman, Ava Sharp, and Nora Dark. In the C tier we have Vixen, Heatwave, and the Atom. In the B tier we have Zari, Kid Flash, Citizen Steel, Captain Cold, and White Canary. In the A tier we have Rip Hunter, Jefferson Jackson, and Martin Stein. And right up there in the S tier we have the Reverse Flash. I feel like this tier list will be a little bit more controversial than my other tier list, just because of the fact that Captain Cold and Heatwave are a lot lower than I'm guessing a lot of people would want them to be. I don't think anything under C tier, like D tier and F tier, I don't think those are controversial, but I do think that the fact that Captain Cold and Heatwave, which so many people love so much more than I do, are lower than S or A tier will probably rub a lot of people the wrong way, which is fine because you can all have your own opinion, and if you do, which I'm guessing your tier list is way different than mine, leave it in the comments down below. And if you liked this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.